It is my extreme pleasure to introduce our next keynote speakers. Let's turn our attention to a broader topic that has advanced considerably in recent years: enhancing cancer care and support for adolescents and young adults, or AYAs, the term typically used for those between 18 and 39 years of age. Cancer diagnoses amongst AYAs has skyrocketed by 79% since 1990. And here in BC, there is a concerted and innovative effort underway to better care and support AYAs who one might consider are in the prime of their lives. They're finishing education, they're building careers, they're getting into relationships, they're becoming parents, when cancer throws a wrench unlike any other.
This keynote focuses on relationships between and amongst AYAs, clinicians, care providers, and researchers. And it's through these relationships that we're creating change in AYA cancer care that's grounded and shaped by the lived experiences of AYAs, people diagnosed with cancer between the ages of 15 to 39. And in fact, at this year's BC Cancer Summit, we have 32 AYAs here with us in the room and 10 supporters who are really committed to co-creating change with us. So this change is happening together. So thank you again for that reminder of working together this morning. So today I have the incredible privilege to introduce two remarkable humans, Niven Sharma and Selena Nagib, who we at ANU have relationships with. Both Niven and Selena have courageously agreed to share their stories and insights about navigating cancer care here in BC. And rather than reading out their bios to you, their stories will really shed light on who they are. Their stories matter. Before I pass it over, though, I do want to just acknowledge that these stories may contain content about their experiences that is difficult to hear. Please take care of yourselves, take a breath, pause, step out, do what you need.
Good morning. My name is Selena, and I stand here before you today as a two-time cancer survivor. My journey began at 30 years old when I was diagnosed with stage 1B1 cervical cancer. The day we got the news happened to be my husband's 30th birthday. Not exactly the kind of gift anyone wants to receive. 5 years later, I faced a metastatic recurrence, this time as a mother. Both experiences profoundly shaped me and my perspectives on what it means to navigate cancer as a young adult. When I was first diagnosed, my cancer was caught early. I needed only surgery, no chemo or radiation. As far as cancer goes, it was a best case scenario. My prognosis was good. I asked about follow-up scans, but was told they aren't necessary. Your chances of recurrence are very low. I accepted that, and I wanted to believe I was in the clear. But what I needed instead of those hopeful reassurances was a structured, tailored surveillance plan, where I didn't need to rely on my symptoms or doubts to know if cancer had returned. Even in this best case scenario, I was faced with one of the hardest decisions of my life, whether to preserve my fertility. I qualified for a trachelectomy, which would remove only my cervix and preserve the possibility of carrying a pregnancy. The alternative was a radical hysterectomy. The hysterectomy was considered the better option for me, but the choice was mine. And what I appreciated most was that I was given time. I had 2 weeks to decide, and I could even change my mind on the day of surgery. At first, fear pushed me towards the hysterectomy, but as the days passed, I thought more about my future and about how I always wanted to be a mother, and I chose the trachelectomy. A few months later, I miraculously became pregnant, and our son was born by C-section at 39 weeks. Becoming a mother after cancer is something I will always be grateful for. Fast forward to recurrence. In the whirlwind of learning my cancer was back, I was asked if I wanted more children. With a busy 4-year-old and now a poor prognosis, my answer was no. Yet, now on the other side of treatment, I wish I'd had more conversations. I wish I'd been offered fertility preservation, saving my eggs. Even if I hadn't survived, maybe my husband would have wanted that. And now that I am here, thriving, I think I might have wanted it too. When I said I was done having children, I was really saying, I'm scared. I'm scared I won't be here. I'm scared of delaying treatment. I'm scared of the costs. I needed someone to ask me more questions, to help me see past the fear and make an informed decision. For AYAs, fertility is not just a medical side effect. It's about identity, family, and the future. It deserves more than a single rushed question. Almost 5 years after my first diagnosis, I noticed cloudy urine, but no infection. I tried everything, more water, cranberry juice, but nothing changed. I even bought my own test strips, which showed I did have blood in my urine. I had flashes of abdominal pain, but my doctor found nothing and offered reassurance. I remember saying, "I'm worried it's cancer again." The response was, "You're young, your chances are low, and this exam doesn't give any cause for concern." 2 months later, a tumor was felt deep in my pelvis. Scans confirmed I had a 7-centimeter tumor that spread to my bladder. Many doctors had struggled to find that tumor, but my gynecologist, a man with large hands, reached it. I can't help but wonder, was my life saved because the size of someone's hands? If so, that's not the kind of big hand story you want to tell at dinner parties. This was my metastatic recurrence, caught right after the 5-year mark, the very milestone when I was told I was safe. Before my recurrence, my husband and I had just bought our first home in Terrace, a modest 2-bedroom house with our son and dog. It felt like the beginning of something exciting. Then came the aggressive treatment plan. I knew I wouldn't have the energy to be home full-time with our 4-year-old, so we kept him in daycare. But that came with risks, the endless carousel of colds and flus, all during the height of COVID, when every sniffle carried extra fear. Anyone with a preschooler knows they are a walking petri dish of disease, and hand sanitizer doesn't stand a chance. With a poor prognosis and a fragile immune system, I moved back with my parents. Thankfully, they lived just 2 blocks away, so my husband and son could visit daily, masked and distanced, but present. It was incredibly hard, and I should have been thriving in my independence, but I was suddenly back under my parents' roof, needing them to care for me again. This is the reality for so many AYAs. Cancer doesn't just threaten your health, it disrupts your independence, your identity, and the foundation of the life you're trying to build. What would have helped me was support designed for young adults. Childcare options, family housing during treatment that required travel, even just recognition that independence matters at this stage of life. My first diagnosis happened when I was living in the Lower Mainland with full access to BC Cancer resources. When my cancer occurred, I was living in Terrace. Terrace is rural. We have a wonderful hospital, but the services are limited. For advanced care, travel is daunting. A PET scan means travel to Vancouver, 1,400 kilometers one way. The nearest radiation facility is in Prince George, 600 kilometers from Terrace. When I needed 6 weeks of radiation, I had to leave home. This was a huge financial burden and deeply disruptive to my family. My husband and son joined me for a while, but only because he could work remotely and our son was on summer break. But the treatment plan stretched into September. I was 600 kilometers away from home when our only child started kindergarten. That was one of the toughest days. I broke down when I was told I couldn't go home for that milestone, a day I had dreamed of being there for. I know how hard that experience was for us, and I can't help but think how much harder it must be for others, single parents, families without flexibility, those without support. What would have helped is more accessible local services, or better support for travel and accommodation, so families aren't left to shoulder the burden alone. Cancer is already overwhelming. Add distance, isolation, and financial strain, and the burden becomes even heavier. Survivorship is not just about living longer, it's about living with the late effects, the fears and responsibilities that come with being a young adult facing cancer. My mind constantly swirled with questions. Should I start preparing for no longer being here? Should I transfer my car into my husband's name? What about my RSPs? Should I fix the shed or clean the garage to lessen burdens when I'm no longer here? Should I write letters or make videos for our son? These are not abstract worries. They are the lived reality of AYAs who are told their risks are slim, but who know deep down that our horizon is different. And the truth is, the statistics are a bit flawed. Much of the recurrence data comes from older adults who just don't live long enough for late effects to manifest. That underestimates the risks for AYAs who live decades after treatment. What would help is care that sees us as whole people, care that acknowledges our independence, our families, our futures, and the decades we hope to live after treatment. This is my story, but it's not just mine. I've heard versions of it from so many other AYAs. If there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's this. AYAs deserve care that reflects our realities, not assumptions. We deserve to be asked the deeper questions, to be given time and options, and to have systems that recognize our struggles, our needs, and the long road we walk after treatment. AYA Cancer Care is not just about treating the disease in the moment. It's about supporting the whole person, our independence, identity, fertility, mental health, families, and our futures. Thank you.